Do your children, do your young people, do your young adults know some of the things that are going to happen before the return of Jesus? I'm Daphne Kirk of Generation to Generation. So in the first video we did, we looked at some of the attributes of God that, if they enter into, will hold them steady as the years unfold. His leadership, that he is a good leader. His heart, that his heart is always for us, it's always a heart of love. And his power, that his power is sufficient to overcome in this world. We are going to be looking at Matthew 24 and what Matthew has to say about the coming of Jesus. But today, I just want to look at few aspects of his return that I wonder if this next generation know. You see, God is coming back for a passionately in love church, a church that is loving him as the bride that he created them to be, and as him as the bridegroom. After all, we're going to be at the marriage supper of the Lamb, the marriage supper of the Lamb, where the bride and the bridegroom come together for eternity, for the age to come. And so, this next generation can be looking for that love expression, for entering into that passionate love, and to know that there is more to come, to know that he is their bridegroom, to start relating in love and appreciation of this wonderful King who is returning, who laid down his life for them. In Joel 2 and in Acts 2, it says this: "In these last days I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy, your young men will dream dreams, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams." We are raising a generation that in the last days are going to be prophesying. They're already, I believe, a prophetic generation, a generation that are moving forward. And I, for one, want to keep up with them because I don't want to be left behind in the prophetic move of God that is happening on this earth with this generation as he prepares them. I hear story after story of the amazing things that are happening across the earth, of a generation on fire. Well, your children, your young people can be on fire too. Maybe they are. But do they know where this is all heading? Do they know that that fire, that love will have the ultimate expression when they receive their King back and he welcomes them for eternity? And then in John 17, there is the prayer of Jesus where he said this: "I have given them the glory that you have given me, so that they may be one as we are one." The church today in so many places is divided. Individual church expressions are divided. Around the world there is a church that is divided. But God is coming back to see the answer to the prayer of his Son, which was that we would be one. And maybe we can start inspiring this generation by our leadership, by the things we say and the passion we carry, to not hold offences, to not speak negatively, and to embrace the body of Christ, your local body, across the city you're in their schools, in their colleges, of an expression of a friendship, of a relationship that is not going to be divided, that will lay down its life for one another, that we will be one. Jesus isn't going to return for a bride that is fighting itself, but he's going to return to see the answer of this prayer, that we would be one. And it will happen. It has to happen because Jesus prayed it. But do they know? Are they looking for that? And do they know they have a part to play in it? And then in Matthew 24, "And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come." I'm going to do a video on this specifically, but we are raising a generation to complete the Great Commission, complete it. My generation talked about doing it. Their generation is talking about completing it. And if they're going to complete it, we have to raise them and envision them and train them and send them to the nations, to some of the hardest nations on earth. So often I see that the issue of the Great Commission is sometimes mentioned, and usually when they're older. But if we're raising a Great Commission completing generation, why are we not every week inspiring them from childhood through their teenage years, so that as they get older, they cannot wait to go? The materials that I have written from the earliest age, every week there is something about mission, about evangelism, and it is training them and preparing them. Our Five for the Nations training prepares them right from childhood, families together, to get out there and finish this task. You know, it said that we can hasten, Peter said, we can hasten the day of his return. Well, if the completion of the Great Commission is part of nearing the end, maybe we should help them to get on with it, maybe even go with them. And then the last one is a love for Israel. Sadly, 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 I see so many children, so many young people and so many adults who are so ignorant and disinterested in what God has to say for Israel. You know, in Deuteronomy 7 it says this, "For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special possession of the peoples of all the peoples of the earth." If they are a special possession, if they are a special treasure to the heart of God out of all the peoples on the earth, shouldn't we treasure them too? If the things that are precious to him need to be precious to us, shouldn't the nation of Israel, shouldn't the Jewish people be special to us? My own children were raised with a love for Israel. They don't know a day when they didn't love Jesus. They don't know a day when they didn't love Israel. It was a part of their growing up. It was the DNA of our family. And it needs to be a DNA of this next generation. I'm going to give you some side issues here, but there will be another video specifically on this. You know, God chose that nation because he loves them. He loves them. So we need to love them. But then he says that he chose them to be a witness to the nations. And when we do not understand Israel, we lose the witness that he has left on this earth. Now, sometimes I say to young people, how do you know God is faithful? And they say, well, he did this for me, or he did that for that person. And I go, okay, but there's more to it. Then I say, how do you know that he forgives you? Well, because I did this and he forgave me. Good. Anything else? And then I say to them, how do you know that he keeps his promises? And they struggle with that a bit more. But you see, the answer to all these questions and more is tied up with God's relationship with Israel. We know he's a covenant-keeping God because no matter what Israel did, he keeps his covenant to them, and he will keep his covenant to them. We know that he's faithful because he's faithful to them. Through the thousands of years, he has always been faithful. How do we know he forgives? Because time after time, he has forgiven the Jewish people and he has returned to the land. How do we know that he keeps his promises? Take them to Israel. Bring them with us. Take them there to see the promises of Israel that right today you can walk in and see fulfilled. He keeps his promises, and the nation of Israel and the Jewish people are evidence of that. I'll finish with this story. We were in Jerusalem and we were walking around, and I said to a child, "What's that?" And they said, "Oh, that's a child." And I said, "No, you're not seeing." "What's that?" And they said, "Well, it's a little girl." I said, "No, you're not seeing." You see, that is prophecy fulfilled. That child is prophecy fulfilled because he said, once again, the children will be on the streets of Jerusalem. Another time we saw a children's playground and I said, "What's that?" And they said, "A playground." I said, "No, it's prophecy fulfilled because once again, the children are on the streets of Jerusalem. Every piece of fruit you eat here that has been grown in the land is prophecy fulfilled. The people there are prophecy fulfilled. And if they don't understand the nation of Israel, if they don't understand the battle that is going on over that nation, if they don't know that they need to align themselves with God in what is happening around that nation, I really believe there are going to be tragic results as many of them fall away from God and do not understand what is happening. So there are just 4 things that will introduce them to what is going to happen before his return. I know there are many more. Not going to be able to go through all of them, but we will address some of the hard issues as well as we're going to address some of the great issues. So today I've mentioned 4 things. Do they know that God is waiting for and looking for a church and a people that love him as a bride loves the bridegroom and are passionately in love with him? Do they know that the heart of God and the final prayer of Jesus, which must be fulfilled before he returns, is that we would be one, that they are going to be a generation that will fight for unity, that will fight for friendship, and will learn how to be faithful in relationship with each other. And then there's the Great Commission. The completion of the Great Commission is in this generation's hands, and therefore it needs to be in our hands, because we're going to disciple them and we're going to train them and we're going to prepare them to complete this, and then the end will come. And then lastly, a love for Israel. Big topic, whole video I'll do on it, but wake up this generation. We are losing them and their heart for Israel, and I believe that's because the generation before either have lost it themselves or are not passing on. So 4 things to pass on to them before the Jesus returns. 4 great things, and I look forward to the day when I see Joel fulfilled, when he pours out his Spirit on every generation on this earth. Let's go for it and get them ready for the return of the King. I'm asking you, if this video has inspired you or it's helpful, please share it. This message needs to go out to anybody and everybody in your sphere of influence, and give it a like. Hit that notification bell so that you don't miss the next videos that are coming, and please subscribe. Thanks.